Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Bomb City podcast. This episode's really exciting to share because it's my first interview outside of the Bay Area. My interview with Matchstick, creator of Matchstick Customs and Custom Vanner magazine. Now, since he lives way down in the desert in Lancaster, California, and my good friend Bob lives down there, I asked Bob if he'd want to join in the interview, and I'm so glad he did. He really added a lot to the conversation. We had a great time down there. Not only does Matchstick run a custom van shop, and his own screen printing business, and a magazine, but he also has the extraordinary opportunity to work with Gene Winfield out at his shop in Mojave. So he was nice enough to take me and Bob on a tour of his shop and museum over there, and it was just mind-blowing. I'll be sure and post up all the pictures on the Bomb City blog. I am so grateful that Matchstick took the time out to talk to us. We had awesome conversations all throughout the day, so I'm really excited to share this one with you guys today. So here it is, episode 8 of the Bomb City podcast, Matchstick. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, so I really wanted to hear about coming to California from Louisville. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but...
Yeah, like many things in life, there were many facets to my decision to go, and it was very difficult. It was like, Kristen didn't want to go, and I knew she didn't want to go, and but she wanted to be with me, so she came with me, and so it was really tough to have to give away our stuff and pack it up and move and to say, this sucks now, but when we get there, it's going to be worse. It's going to be even worse. If you hate life right now, we're going to live in the desert in a junkyard.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we did. And we lived in the double wide there at Gene's with other guys. And we did that for 6 months. Our bed was in front of the television in the living room. So Kristen's about as hardcore as it gets.
Yeah.
It was an extremely trying time, and she's a tough cookie, but we love each other, and so that's what makes it happen. So you have to pay attention to that. We were talking about relationships earlier, and they're difficult. Yeah. So, but when you get to that point, there is no you. It's the both of you, and that was some advice Fay Butler gave me. He's like, "That's you is over. It's you two." So try to keep that in mind. But yeah, so I decided to leave Kentucky. I had a pretty good job at Allison's Rod and Custom. I'd worked there for about 3 years total. I'd been in another shop in between. And I'd been to Fay's and started to learn about material science, and that changed everything for me. And Allison's was a really cool shop, but Keith knew that I wanted to be doing sheet metal, and we only had so much of that to be done. And it wasn't that they didn't want to do it. It's just in that part of the country, the kind of work that's coming in are just guys that they sell cardboard for a living, and they just want a '70 Mustang, and then they want a black '70 Mustang, and then they want it to have a racing stripe. That's the breed of person coming to get the work. So it's not like they didn't want me to do that work there. They encouraged it, and in my last few months there, they had a P6 Pullmax, and I got that running for them, and I did some detail work and a little bit of shaping on it, and I made thumbnail dies for the machine. I made my own joggle dies. It was a 440 volt motor, so I got on eBay and bought a step-up transformer, and Keith's brother wired it, and the buttons were broken on the on-off switches, and they were 50s GE buttons, and I cast them. I really wanted to make that machine run, and they let me do that. I took a switch home and I made a silicone mold, and I poured a switch, so if anybody needs a GE button, I've got the mold for your Pullmax or any other equipment, and so we got it to run. And it was funny because they have latching circuits, and it wouldn't engage, and I'd have to take a piece of wood and engage the transformers. But the more I did it and the more I ran it, it cleaned up, and then the buttons all started to work. And so I brought this Pullmax back to life that its life had been in the ammunition plant in Charlestown, Indiana. Probably just shearing plate or nibbling, just doing something basic. And I made some parts for a Fox body Mustang that we'd put a rear frame clip in, and that was cool. That was good stuff, and it was great to do. But I wanted to do a lot more like that, and we didn't have a whole lot like that. And I wanted to go to Gene's and see what it was like. I liked working with Gene on the road. We'd chop tops together at World Wheel shows and weekends, and that's a big task.
How did you meet Gene?
I met him at Moon Eyes. When I started doing the magazine, I'd come out here and come with a friend, and we'd get a booth and sell. And Shiggy and Chico had said, "We want vans at Moon Eyes," And so we came out to support Moon, and Moon supported us. And I had a really long day. I hadn't seen anything at the show, and I was like, I'm going to go walk around. And there was Gene selling his stuff, and I was like, look at this poor old guy selling truck nuts and trinkets. And I was just like, man, this poor guy, he's just like at the end of the road, and here he is just still muscling it by himself. And I had just seen the Pacifica online. I didn't know he'd built it in 62 originally. I thought it was a new creation. It blew my mind. I thought it was amazing. The asymmetrical headlights and the section job on the cab. It's very cool. And independent front suspension. So I had just done a calendar. That was my issue 5. And, so I said, hey, some Econolines in here. I saw Pacifica. I thought it was cool. I thought you might like to have this. He was like, oh, thank you. That was like my whole Moon Eyes experience, was like seeing Gene's booth and watching everybody else break down at the end of the day. So that was my first interaction with him. And then he came to Louisville, and I was doing a Pinstripers Jam at the Carl Casper 50th show. And somebody said, hey, Gene needs posters copied, and they knew that I was in printing, and so they were like, maybe you can help Gene. And Gene didn't know that, and he's like, I need what's called cardstock. And I was like, I got you, no problem. So I got him some copies made for the next day. It's a picture of his shop in Modesto that he signs and sells, and I helped him load the Pacific in because he got there late, and helped him get the truck in. I thought it was really cool, and we hung out. And the next night we took him to dinner at this place, Jack Fry's. It's like a pretty classy place in Louisville. It kind of looks like a place like Scorsese would hang out or something. There's a lot of old black and white photos on the wall. They have a guy that plays the bass and a guy that plays the piano on Fridays. And we took him to dinner real late there, and then we took him dancing at this place called Jim Porter's, which people call like the wrinkle room, like it's where the 40 and over crowd goes to get a date. And we took Gene there dancing till like 3 a.m. We're like, when is this guy gonna be tired? Never. And he got a kiss from some girl, on the cheek or whatever, and danced. And so that was how I met him. And so that weekend he was telling us about his metal shaping class, and they were gonna chop who knows what, some land yacht of a car. And then he said, but next weekend I'll be in Chicago shopping a 50 Chevy business coupe. And we're like, what does that class cost? And he's like, nothing. You'll be there working for free. And we were like, okay, maybe we will. So my friend BJ and I moved up there, and I was living with BJ then. It was right around the time I'd met Kristen, and I just moved back from Western Kentucky. And I was living at BJ's house in his kid's bunk bed. So I was like at a crossroad. I was like, I had just met Kristen. I was thinking about going to Chicago or California, anywhere but Louisville. I'd already done that. I'd lived it. So we went to Chicago and worked with Gene. It was amazing. And the car got done, and in large part us being there and working and putting out some muscle. I'm sure other people would step up to the plate if we didn't, but it was an interesting experience. The owner of the car yelled at me. And I didn't even respond to the guy. I just let him yell at me, and I asked Voodoo Larry to straighten it out. I said, I don't know why this guy is yelling. Who knows? I don't really get what it was about. And I told Gene about it, and Gene just goes, fuck him. So we finished the car like we do. We finished the job, and Gene found out, that I'd been living in a bus, and he wanted me to drive this bus out to his place and live in the bus, because everybody lives in a bus or a trailer at Gene's. Yeah. He wanted me to do that, and I gave it some thought, and I didn't. But I kept going to the shows. I kept driving to World Wheel shows. One Thanksgiving, I drove to Houston, which was, like 1,200 miles each way. Gene always gave me like $100. He never, even when we went to Chicago the first time, he gave us like $100 because we were there very late Sunday, and BJ needed to be home to pick up his kid and stuff, and we didn't make that. But he gave us $100 anyway. That's how he is. He never left us hanging. He always treated us right, and that, So, when he was trying to get me to come out of the shop, I was thinking about it, and he'd call me sometimes, and he'd be like, hey, Rich Evans has got some TV work, you can come do this show where there's going to be like 6 builders, 6 designers, 2 teams, and whoever's car wins, GM's going to give you some money or something like that, and I turned it down because we were starting to work on a Riddler car at work, and I thought that they needed me there, and I don't think that they did, I don't think it made any difference. That car's still there, and it's still a great car, but my input on it was nothing. I didn't do anything to it. I just didn't want to abandon ship, I wanted to help out and make sure things got taken care of, but Eventually, the situation just grew stale to me. I didn't have a shop at home. I rented a house with a garage. My landlord used the garage. Yeah. And I don't know. Things were just not looking great. So I just said, why not go to California and spend some time with Gene, even if it's just for a year. Yeah. I'm sure I would learn some things, and maybe I'd get a place out there and get some equipment, and maybe when things fizzle out with Gene's, I can walk into my own shop. And I talked it over with Fay, and he seemed to think that was a decent plan, and he knew Gene. He's known Gene for years, and he respects Gene, and he said, I think he's a good guy, and he takes care of his people, and he's probably not very good with money. He probably gets his money in chunks, and if you can go into it understanding that and accept that part of it, then I think that you would have a great time, and I think Fay was very accurate in that. And it has been. It's been, and there were some low points where I was like, "What am I doing?" And but it's golden. I mean, working with that guy every day, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. How long have you been there now?
It's been, I think, a year and a half, maybe. Okay. I don't know. I went out in, I think, like April of 15. I went out by myself, and Kristen stayed home, and I worked for about a month. And we had just finished painting a van at Coop's house, the van that's out back here that you guys saw. And so we had been hustling for like a month to get that done before I moved, and then moved out here and got paid because those people were local to California. So
had you seen a shop before you moved here?
We did. We drove out. Okay. Kristen and I drove out to see it, because I wanted to go, and I was like, let's just go check it out. Let's see what it's like. So we went out there and saw it. And I've always worked at small businesses, and they were always crazy places, and they were a little bit disheveled, and I was like, yep, this fits in line with the anti-reality that I've lived in for the beginning of my life. So it fit right in. It was the same. I don't need my expectations managed. I don't believe that you need a state-of-the-art facility to get things done.
Yeah, I mean, for people who haven't seen Gene's shop before, I was surprised the first time I went there. Like, I was expecting this really, like, big high-end shop with, like, a ton of bays and lifts and stuff. And I guess from working there, how would you describe Gene's shop?
It's, I would say it's post-World War II body shop. We use a little bit of lead. We use a little bit of body filler. It's an old wood structure. Yeah. We have an agreement with the fire department that if we burn the building down with our wood stove, that they are going to wait till it burns down. It's old. But it has always been what it is. It was a custom shop before it was Gene's.
Yeah.
So the paint booth was already there, and it already said Flames and paint jobs on it, and it said like something else, and I think Gene painted Mercury's over it. But some guy dropped in like last week that worked there when he was younger, and they did customs. So it's interesting. It's a big shop and a little shop, and that's how we refer to it. The big shop's where a lot of the projects are at. The cars are there, and then the paint booth's at the end of it, and there's kind of like two safe spots that are kind of shielded off from where all the metal's flying and things like that. And they're in an extension of the paint booth area, and but there's no real clean room. It's the desert. There's sand everywhere. Yeah. The lights are pretty good, but it could be brighter in there, I suppose. But it's like any shop. The brightest area is the paint booth. You get in the booth and you're like, man, look at all this other stuff I didn't see. But no, it's old school. It's very old school. It's an old wood structure. The roof leaks. Some of the wiring's questionable in places. And things are add-ons to add-ons. But it's still a place capable of getting things done. And Gene always works to improve it. He really does. Like, it might look like a trash hole, but I've heard it described as a much greater trash hole before I was ever there. Joe and Kyle worked really hard to make that place what it is, and it's functional. We've got 3-phase power, and so our Polmax and our grinders are 3-phase, the big 36-inch grinder. Gene buys the tools, and some of them he buys for show, but I mean, he's got a P21 Polmax. What more could you ask for? He's got the latest model CP planishing hammer. That's what everybody wants, and he's got it, and it's on a pedestal, and he's got a couple handheld yokes for it, and those may have been things that he acquired just to acquire them because he likes to show people tools. But I put them to work, and they work fantastic, And he's not afraid if I'm like, Gene, we need a set of dies, or we need stuff. He buys it, or I'll buy it, and he'll reimburse me. So it's an old school. It's a shanty town, It's a pile of parts out behind. We're a junkyard. We got 5 acres there, and it's a junkyard out back. And it's a little rough around the edges, and it's California, so the shear's outside, the press brake's outside, all the brakes are outside. Yeah. But they're fine. They're doing okay out there, and Gene repaints the tools. So it's a little bit rough, but there is, the people there do care about the things that are there.
Yeah.
So it's not a complete war zone.
When I went there the first time, and thanks again for the tour earlier,
Oh, you're welcome.
I think I walked away probably more inspired to get to work in my own little space, because it's like, well, if they're doing this work here, what the fuck is my excuse for not banging out work in my shitty garage, What do they have here that's so unique besides just a shit ton of talented passion for what they're doing?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the ode to Gene Winfield. I mean, Gene's been a teacher to so many people that took it and ran with it. Guys ask me what his metal shaping class is like, and I think it's a very unique experience, and he's not necessarily telling you advanced things, but he's no one has the experience that Gene has. He's been in the industry since 1946, so no one else has been in it as long as he has and can tell you what it's been like the whole time. I mean, he's a guy that fought it out in the 70s when it was dying, so he has taught a lot of people, and he teaches about basic metal shaping. He talks about the English wheel, he talks about Lancaster shrinkers and stretchers and things like that, but he also has a unique position in that he can talk to you about the altering of an automobile body. Yeah. And he will talk to you about chops, sections, French and lights, things like that. And he's happy to share that. So he's trying to make, it's I think it's an entry-level class, and a lot of guys have taken it and run with it. And there's people... there's so many people that oh yeah, I took that class years ago, and that was my first class, and that's what he's done. And Gene is an inspiration because if you were like, Gene, here's a claw hammer, build me a car, and Fay Butler says the same thing. Fay's like, I could build a car with a claw hammer, and maybe those things are exaggerations, but there are people that are skilled and they're determined, and I think that some shops are very nice and clean and have certain tools in them just to manage your expectations. Yeah. And I mean, to say that Gene doesn't do that would be a lie, because he just bought a cast English wheel. I don't wheel anything. I prefer the planishing hammer. That's what I work with. The Polmax and the planishing hammer are the two things I work together with. But yeah, it's a huge inspiration. And one of the guys at work asked me, what I have here in the shop, and I gave him a very limited amount of tools. But I mean, some of it I do at Gene's and bring it over here, but I can do quite a bit of work here with just what little amounts out there in that Quonset hut. Yeah. And it just, the space and the tools don't necessarily always make the project. It's what you do with them. Yeah. How you utilize them.
There's, I think some people will wait to work until they have the right set of tools to do it, and that's kind of like a bullshit lie to yourself to not do something you're afraid of. And it's cool seeing that at Gene's shop, that you need a die, you make one. It's a pretty inspiring shop in that way.
Yeah. Some people don't give themselves permission to do things and to run with it, and I've met people like that, and at times I've been that way. Sometimes you just get stuck on something and you're like, I need to get this thing, or there's been times where I've certainly waited to build a tool and then I didn't use it. Yeah. I was like, well, that was the wrong idea, and I'll start over. And those things happen, but yeah, there are definitely people out there in the home sector, that they want to do a project and they think that they don't have what they need. And I blame that on the media, magazines. My dad is big on magazines, and he'll tell me stuff that he's read about all the time. I'm like, that doesn't really have anything to do with anything, Dad. You don't need this rock tumbler to clean all your bolts or whatever. I don't know what some of these goofy things are. You don't need to take a bag of walnuts and blast your car down. You can do it other ways. I think there's people somebody told me there's a huge liability in talking beyond someone's knowledge level, and I think sometimes the magazines do that. They'll create this line of dialogue about a method, and they're just trying to be informative and show a proper way to do it, not a shade tree way to do it. They want to give you the good stuff and what the professionals are doing. And in turn, what happens is you just make people afraid to go out and try and make what little they have work.
Yeah.
But that's in the individual.
Yeah.
You got to overcome it. Like you said, you left inspired. Sometimes that's all it takes. You just need some inspiration. You go somewhere and you see something, and I mean, as human beings, we look for inspiration in all kinds of things. So, hopefully people find it. And I think people see it out of Gene's. Here's a guy is 89 years old, and he gets up every day, and he really does. He comes into work. I mean, he comes in and we work on stuff. And I mean, sure, Gene's not hammer welding 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Why would you do that to him? Like, that's so mean. But he comes in and he sands his runs with me in the booth, or we make grills together, or we discuss designs, and we shape bucks together, things like that. He's not afraid to do it. He wants to do it. That's what he lives for. So there's a lot of inspiration up there.
Yeah.
And seeing the old tooling.
I don't think a guy like him would still be doing what he does if he didn't enjoy it.
No, not at all. And he's not jaded. He's not jaded by it. He enjoys people. He's really in his element. It shows. And I think his pain is at home dealing with the shop, because he doesn't have to do the shop. It really doesn't do much. He loves the shows and being out with the people. I mean, I'm not going to speak for him. He probably loves his shop, but I think that in the earlier days, they were able to do things differently and faster, and it was just kind of like weld this fender up and lead it or mud it and make it look right. And we're in there and we're like, Gene, this needs to be shaped and it's got to look right. And we're, we just want it to be nice. And the level at which we do things now in this industry has escalated, and he's still there, and that's fine. That's what he is. He's a guy from the, he's torn to those methods, and he's stuck with them, and that's okay. But I think that's where people analyze the stuff and they say it's like rough or whatever, but it's just, I think that's just where it was then. But how am I supposed to know? That's revisionism on my part. So it's all speculation. But anyway, he's a great guy and he means well. And man, has he done a lot of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And he teaches me stuff all the time, things I never expected to learn. Like doing the plastic taillights, doing the bubble tops, stuff like that. I didn't know Gene did all that. And I was just rooting around in the closet and found it, and I was like, wow, maybe I could make bubble windows for the vans like this. And he was like, he was in the pool there at the house, and I showed him what I wanted to do, and he goes, oh yeah, that's fine. That just build this shape here, and then you put it in the oven, and it'll come out great. It's nothing to him.
So would you say that you've developed a friendship with him?
Absolutely, yeah. Gene and I are friends, and we hit it off great. He's got a good sense of humor, and we joke around. And he loves to bust balls.
Yeah.
He has no problem with that whatsoever. I mean, I can't tell you how many times he'll be hammering something and Kyle will yell out, hit it with your purse. Just all kinds of stuff. He's a joker. We get along great. And Gene reminds me a lot of my grandfather. They were born within months of each other. They were both born in 1927, and my grandfather passed away in 2008. But those people were cut from a different stock.
Yep.
That was a different time, and Grandpa and Gene, they reminded me a lot of each other. And my grandfather made burial vaults and septic tanks, concrete forms and things like that. And he built all of his own beds for his boom trucks out of 1/4-inch diamond plate. And he built the booms and the chain drives. And he, my dad said that Grandpa pioneered the, mobile vault trailer for cemeteries. They would walk things in with tripods. And so my grandfather's brother-in-law worked at Magnavox in the defense division and gave him a gear drive for a bomber door. And he mated that with a transmission, and he attached a flywheel to a transmission output shaft, and he would engage this motor for this bomber door, and he would drive the transmission like that. And so he had several gears to drive this cart through the cemetery, and so that was the beginning of vault trailers.
Wow.
And he was, he's the vice president of Doric Burial Vault Association, and and he was a guy that he did it himself, and Gene's the same way. They're just guys. They had no choice but to get the job done.
Yeah.
My grandfather took that business over from his father-in-law in '54, and they were, I don't know, like $30,000 in debt, and that's a lot of money in 1954.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, Dad, how would you run a business that far in debt at that point in time? Because I wouldn't want to go jump into any business right now that's that far in. Maybe that's not a lot of money, but for small businesses, it's tough to build up that kind of capital.
Yeah.
And he said, well, grandfather tended bar when he was younger, and he gave rides home to people that were important that wouldn't have made it home. And when it was time to borrow the money, they loaned him the money and paid it back when he said he'd pay it back. So it's a different time, and they were, that was what you did. You did what you said you'd do, and you get it done. And Gene is that same way, and I really appreciate that. Guys that just, necessities and mother of invention. Those, my grandfather and Gene weren't out on forums like, do you think I could build my own boom bed, and then having someone talk them down off the ledge. Well, here's why you can't do it. It's not safe. There wasn't any of that.
Yeah.
They did it, and they were for the most part, I would say, aside from people that may have been around them, they were free of other people's ideas. They had their own ideas, and they could follow them, and they weren't clouded by the judgment of others unless they were surrounding themselves with these people. Whereas now, you're overloaded by the internet, and just, you want to post a picture. Yeah, you want to post a picture of something you've done, and you may find the best expert on the internet on that thing that you did. They're ready to tell you why you did it wrong.
Just shit all over it for you.
Yep, exactly. And that's where, for me, that's where science came in, because you see all these things and you read all these things and you're like, what is what? What's an old wives' tale? What's real? What's not? And so that's where going to Fay and learning material science in the beginnings of it. And I work on it here at home. I didn't just do it at Fay's and emulate it there and then go home and do the same things I've been doing before. I wanted to learn, and I bought books, and I read, and I still read. And for me, that's what coming out here was. Coming to California was taking time off. I wasn't a guy that thought, I'll work at these rod shops, and after 5 years, I'll open my own rod shop, and it'll be better than everybody else's rod shop.
Yeah.
I wanted to build a custom van for myself, and I wanted to work on things. But then I realized what could be learned, and you can become a real craftsman if you learn the science, because then you're not just doing some trick. I remember being at Allison's, and these guys came in. Keith had worked at Ford, and so we would get these guys from Ford just drop by, like, who knows who they were or where they met him. But
Yeah.
I remember these two guys came in, they'd worked at Ford, and they kind of reminded me of like the old men up in the gallery of the Muppet Show. Yeah, and they're just like, come in like, but they tried to offer us this little, like, I don't know if I was welding on stainless or something, but they're like, yeah, you know how we found out how to not get that warping on stainless? Fish oil. You rub fish oil on the panel. It's like, why would you rub a contaminant all over your weld surface?
Right.
Or even if you're not even putting it in the weld area and you're still trying to dodge the heat affected zone, what kind of black magic is fish oil? In weld metallurgy, what does putting an oil from an animal outside of the heat affected zone do for the weld? Nothing that I know of.
Yeah.
You need, you need chemistry in the weld puddle. You don't need goofy stuff rubbed all over your panel. So, so those are things that's the things I think of when I'm grateful that I got the chance to go work with Fay and learn from him. And he inspired me to learn more. And to me, we live in a very meaningless world, and we have to create our own meaning and purpose, because
Absolutely.
there's really nothing to it. You could sit on the couch and play Candy Crush all day and watch your life go away, and you certainly wouldn't have to work as hard as some people do. People just do whatever it is they do, whether they admit it or not, and some people's passion is getting by doing nothing. But for me, it's other than the people that I love, and this may seem like a bleak outlook, but there's nothing else. It's the people I love and doing working with my hands, making things. That's all I enjoy, because otherwise there's so much hate and anger out in the world and so much stupidity, and it just makes me so sad to see it, and I can't block it out. And so for me, if I can just stay in the present and work out in the shop and keep my head down, that's where I feel okay. But if you give your mind time to wander, this is something that Fay told me, and it helped me a lot. He said, given the chance to wander, the mind will go places it shouldn't, like our dreary past or a future that hasn't happened yet. Yeah. And it's really no good doing either. Just stay in the present and just work. And that was a huge side effect of going to Fay, was that he discusses the psychology of a craftsman. And whether it's a craftsman or not, it's psychology in general. And he recommended a book to me on psychology, which I have on my shelf, and I'm trying to delve into it. And because he said you'll see things that people do, and maybe things you do, and you'll think they're strange, and then you'll read about them, and then you'll understand that maybe they're not so strange at all. Huh. They're very common things. But he told me that we can learn about people and the way that they behave, and the same way we can learn about material science, metals, and things like that. And it's important. So, this part of my life is I'm trying to educate myself. I want to learn more about the materials I work with and understand why I work with them. Not to be an intellectual and to be condescending to other people, because I certainly run into people that tell me things and I just say yes, and I don't argue. I don't want to argue with people. I don't need to be right unless it's in my shop and they want me to work on their vehicle and I have to explain why I may not do that to their car. Or why that's unnecessary, or why I don't have a 55-gallon drum of fish oil. But it's just understanding things,
Has it always been something that you've been interested in, just learning whatever you can, like whatever interests you? Or
Well, I certainly have a mechanical mind. I worked at a bike shop from the age 12 till I was 17 when I switched to the print shop, and so we were rather industrious children. The bike shop had 2 locations, and the owner didn't know that he was paying kids cash to work there. It was through our manager, John, that we were allowed to do this. But we had a friend, Bob Akers, and he taught machining at New Albany High School, and we would say, Bob, we need this 14-millimeter axle. We need you to mill 2 sides of it off so it'll fit in a 3/8 dropout. And that was the thing when bikes were still 3/8 and 14-mil dropouts. People wanted a 14-mil axle, and these slotted ones were just a thing. They were a fad, and they were terrible because they cross-thread like crazy, right. But we were taking these, they were already hardened axles from DK hubs, which were popular, and we worked with DK a lot for parts, and we would have them machined, and we would take 1/4-inch plate and take angle grinders, and we would make these sprocket guards and bolt them on. It was popular to grind on your chain and your sprocket at that time, run a real heavy width chain. And I would take Grandpa's diamond plate that was left over from those burial vault beds. It was old, and it smelled so bad. It smelled, and I remember it very well. It was and because we're poor, we had a lot of stale candy bars. It smelled like when you open a really stale Hershey's from Big Lots. That's what that metal smelled like, grinding it in those wheels. It was so pungent. And we would barbarically make these chain guards, but we'd package them and sell them in the bike shop, And so we were always into stuff like that, and learning the mechanics. And we wanted to be better at working on bikes, and that's what we did. John let us build bikes. That was our manager, John Molnar, and he extended he gave us a lot of rope, but he would never teach us how to lace wheels. Yeah. So I got mad one night and I went home and I laced a wheel, and I came in and I was, I don't know what I said, but I kind of put it in John's face, and I was like, "What do you think about that?" And he said, "Well, I don't know how you're going to put air in your tire because you put a cross over the valve stem hole." So I had failed and I had to relace the wheel, but he finally, when I went out on the limb and I did it myself, he gave me that nugget. He said, "You always start right after the valve stem hole so that you have space to get an air chuck in and air up your tire." And the reason he wouldn't teach us to build wheels is he said, "I don't want you sitting at the front case all day building wheels, doing nothing," because that's what he did. Right. Couldn't take his job away. So there, it was just, it was, we always wanted to be better. We wanted to be good at what we did. We wanted to be great at dialing brakes in, and we wanted to, back then all the bearings were pressed in, but, so that was like not really crazy. But taking stuff apart, taking bikes apart, using weird makeshift tools, or there was always that aha moment using like Park. They make great bicycle tools, and using Park tools, you start to see the beauty in tool craftsmanship, like a pedal wrench. It's very narrow, and they're hardened, and they fit, and they're two-sided for the two popular sizes of bicycle pedals. And you just see these things, and it just starts to come together in your mind. And later I would make T-shirts for BMX Clothing Company, and even in high school I drew a CAD drawing to make handlebars and solid bikes, manufacture them for us, but I was off of my own drawing. And my friend's dad machine shop put up the money, and I don't know if we ever paid him back or not. I have no clue. Probably not. So long ago, but still, we worked hard at it, and we had a good product. And I still have a set. I'll always keep them because it was a cool project to do. And so at that point, at a young age, I was like, well, hey, I guess you can get things manufactured if you just come up with the original. You can make it. So I don't know. I had a lot of interesting experiences like that where I think that older people afforded me some respect that, I don't know, how I would have got it. And we got to do things like that.
Yeah. That's cool. When did bands come into your life?
That was when I was 19 or 20. And I had left the bike shop when I was 16 or so, and I was kind of between both for a little bit. And I still rode my bike everywhere. I didn't start driving until I was 17. So I rode from Indiana to Louisville, which is about 8 miles. I'd ride my BMX bike across the 2nd Street Bridge, and I could take the bus, but I could beat the bus.
Yeah.
I'd sit around and wait for it. Like, I'd miss the stop, and I could ride to the next stop before it ever got there. And so I was like, unless it was just raining, I'd just ride my bike, and I'd go there any day I could get off from school to go print. And so working there, it was the punk rock print shop. We printed for all kinds of punk and hardcore bands, and the guys there I just looked up to. I thought it was the coolest place ever. And as soon as I showed them something I'd printed at home, they put me on a press.
Yeah.
And so I just started working there as much as I could, and we were all in bands. I was in bands then. I was in bands in high school, and that was our thing. We played music all the time. We went to the skate shop. Our drummer was much older than us, and he was the drummer. He owned the skate shop, and so we had a room in the back, and it wasn't always busy, so we'd play in between 5 customers he got a day.
Yeah.
So being in bands, naturally, when you get a little bit better and older, you're like, let's hit the road. So you got to get a van. But, Dad had always been into hot rods, and I wanted a hot rod too, and I don't know, I was trying to decide what I needed to do, and I wanted this. I'd wrecked a car. I'd wrecked a Ford Explorer I had with a trailer. I fell asleep on the highway.
Jesus.
And we had played a show, and we pulled this little 6x3 U-Haul. It was a 60s U-Haul trailer I bought in Tennessee, and it had this weird mesh door on the back. Like, when I bought it, the guy was like, see, it's got this gate if you want to haul goats or something. And Dad and I bought it and hauled it back on a trailer. Dad helped me out to do stuff like that. We spray painted it black and put a white top on it and put new tires. And it was, it was weird the process to go through to do these kind of things, because the axles, the hubs were weird, and this little trailer shop in New Albany machined the centers out of these wheels for me so I could put on some new wheels and tires. It was just crazy. People will have, just go out of their way to help you out like that. It was bizarre to me thinking about it now. It's like, 18-year-old kid, and they machined this trailer wheel for me just to sell me a $60 wheel and help me out. It was so nice. So I had this trailer and had a Ford Explorer, and we'd played the show for a plate of spaghetti, and it was so bad, and we drove back, and we had 2 drummers in the band, and so Matt had to be back for school, for college, and we had to be back from Dayton, Ohio. It was 4 or 5 hour ride, so we basically didn't sleep at all. We slept like a wink, and drove back and got into Metro Louisville. And I'm in the fast lane, and I'm pulling this trailer, and I was all stressed out, giving up my safety space I'd normally keep, and it was lightly misting, and fell asleep and woke up and traffic was stopping. So I slammed on my brakes and went from the fast lane to slow lane and smashed the guardrail, bent my drag link and my frame, and somehow still drove it into town that way. I could make 3/4 of a turn, it wouldn't do anything, but I crept it into town because I couldn't afford a tow. And so I was like, well, now I got to get a van, I guess, or I'll just get a hot rod, And they're like, all there was like the '79 Nova down the road that was like $1,000. That was all I was going to be able to afford. Yeah. It was probably about a $1,000 car. And so there was an '83 Chevy van for $800, and it was a 1-ton. And these people had just moved furniture from Lexington to Louisville in it for their family. And it seemed like a pretty good deal, and so my mom helped me buy it. And I had no money. It sounds lame, like $800 car. My mom helped me buy it, but made like $250 a week at the print shop. Somehow we lived like thousandaires, but we had no money at all. And so mom helped me buy it. I paid her back, whatever. So that was it. That was the beginning. I had gone to car shows with Dad forever, and I never saw a custom van. I didn't even know that the big three made flat front vans. So I saw a post when I finally found vannon.com. I saw this post where this guy at Leadfoot was building this van, a Chevy van. He put a Toyota motor in it. He was getting like 30 miles a gallon. But he was like, I hate when people ask me if it's a Volkswagen. And I'm like, but what is it? I don't know. And so it just, my mind was blown. And so I started seeing all these custom vans, and because that was what made me want to get the van. I was like, well, I could put Kragers on it and headers, and I could enjoy a little hot rod fun. And so that's what I did. And so I got this first van, and it was a window van. Windows aren't cool. You want a panel van, to have art on it. So I joined Bluegrass Vanners of Louisville, Kentucky. They've been around since '76, and they turned out to be some of the best friends I've ever had in my life. They were the only people that ever said, if you need anything, we'll do it for you, and followed through. And it really warmed my heart. And they took me out on the road and started, even though I'd been out on the road in bands, that was okay, but there were too many personalities in music, and they were kind of the same personality, which was, unless you're someone I need to know, I don't need to know who you are. And just people that are very self-centered, and it's just so boring. You're just playing a really shitty band, or are you playing some marginally talented band, and unless somebody else that you care about told you that I am also in a marginally talented band, you don't care. And I was like, it is so worthless. What a lousy chain of command. So I got tired of that quickly, and I was just okay at being in a band. I'm just an okay musician. I love playing guitar. I play all the time, but self-taught, and I just write my own stuff, and that's fun to me. But I miss playing music a lot. But the van club was so much better because we were granted, vanning is I would describe it as party oriented, because you are going out to a big shindig, but that's not you don't have to drink or anything. The cool part was that we were driving. The closest event for us was 2 hours, and we would drive up to 12 at the drop of a hat. And anything beyond 12, then we'd start to consider it economically. We'd say, can we do this? Who in the club wants to really do this, or should we go do something else? But we're going to events that have been around for 40 years, and we're supporting other clubs. And I always tell people that vanning is like a perpetual 50-50 raffle. You just go support each other's clubs. And that was great. It's such a nice community. And we were driving through these amazing parts of America. And my dad had been a truck driver for about a decade, and he would take pictures from the semi, and I would turn them in high school in my photojournalism class. And he would always call me and tell me about what it was like out on the road and what things looked like and how amazing it was. And that first year of vanning, I called him. I was like, you're right. This is the way to see America. Yeah. This is amazing. This country is beautiful. And I remember that coming back from Tennessee. It was Cherokee, North Carolina, actually, but coming back through Tennessee, I remember calling Dad. I just loved it. It's beautiful. Those first 2 years of vanning, I went to 8 events a year. And like I said, the closest one was 2 hours. The rest were a haul. In that first year, that one in Cherokee, North Carolina was supposed to be my last run for the year, and I won a 50-50 raffle, or I won a pre-reg to an event 2 weeks later on my 21st birthday in Iowa. And I was like, I guess I gotta go. I mean, I was very broke. I got home with like no money. I think I returned with $20 from that trip. But these things were eye-opening. I was just driving by myself, listening to music and being out on the road and trying to get more than 14 miles a gallon out of my 350 with 373 gears. And that was difficult. That was slow. And it was interesting. It was so different than anything I'd ever done. And the people were great. And the adventures were something else. Like going to Iowa, I stopped to buy some whiskey because it had already been my birthday, or was my birthday.
Yeah.
And I went into a Tandy's IGA. It's a small grocery store from the Midwest. And the girl's like, "This doesn't look like you." And I was like, "That's funny because it is me." And I was like, "Did you notice that it's my birthday?" And she's like, "Look. If this is a sting, I can't afford the fines." And I was like,
Jesus.
I wish that on my 21st birthday I drove 5 states to have a sting on your Tandy IGA. But I promise I didn't. And she's like, "All right, well, look, don't drink and drive. And before you go to bed, have a big glass of water and 2 Tylenol." I was like, "Okay, thanks." This is always weird stuff like that, and the events and seeing how vanning is in different areas, because again, they're kind of like a party. I mean, you drive to a campground, you spend the weekend there. There's a show and shine on Saturday, but that's only for a few hours. So we're not like showing off our vehicles the whole time. But people are comparing notes and, how'd you build your bed, or you got a TV monitor in there. What do you got? How's it set up? All kinds of different stuff, and it was just a very low-key vibe. I enjoyed it a lot, from the get-go. And so I quit the band and just went vanning. I didn't have to haul equipment. I knew where I was going to be. I already knew I was coming home broke. I didn't have a false expectation of making any money. So it was different, and it was good. It was a fun time.
So would you say that it was the culture really that attracted you more than the vans itself? Or was it you saw the van and went, you saw a custom van and went, "Oh, holy shit, this is amazing," and then the culture is what sealed it for you?
Yeah, it was definitely the van that brought me in. That's the common saying that people have is it's the vans that bring us together and the people that keep us coming back, and that's 100% correct. There's no real other way to put it. I mean, the vans are cool, but not everybody's driving a custom. Some of them are conversions, and some of them are downright, garbage trucks. But that's not really what it's all about. It should be focused more on that, because you can't leave the van out, and some of the people are getting older and they want to bring their campers and their pop-ups, and some people want to stretch it to their RV and they can get the hell out. But it's a very diverse crowd, a lot of funny nicknames and stories and just things that, and then you hang around and then all of a sudden you're a part of the stories. And my friend Frank Costa, he's been vanning since the 70s, and he was near this club and they wanted him to join, and it took a while to get him to join, and he did, and they were like, you're gonna grow old with us. And now it's just him and one other person left in the club, and he's like, I did grow old with them. And that's not a bad thing at all, and that's kind of where I'm at. Here I am 8 years later and still doing the same thing, and I'm like, no sign of stopping, no reason to. That's my people.
When did you get started with the magazine?
I started the magazine in 2010. Started working on it then. I think late 10, like fall.
There was some vanning magazines around then, I imagine, but yours was definitely unique. I guess, what were you trying to do differently with your magazine? Like, what drove that whole thing?
Well, with the vanning culture being so small and tight knit, that the magazines were all predecessors of another. There was never any competition. There weren't two mags. Only now is the first time since, let's say maybe the very late or early 80s, I'd say. Now is the only time that we've had multiple magazines again for vans. But it was, just to give you a quick progression of what happened, it was huge. Late 70s it started to fall apart. And then you started to see boats in van magazines, and there were always some trucks, vans and trucks. And then, but what happened if you watch the cover of Vans and Trucks, which is one of my favorite magazines, I have tons of them. I really like them. I like the layout. They're not totally square. They don't look low budget. And they just have, I think that the writing's good, and some of it's very funny. And Custom Vans was one also. Terry Cook was involved in both of those, and he made those interesting. When he left Hot Rod, he lent his name to Vans and Trucks, and then later Custom Vans as a writer, and those are cool. I like those. But what happened after those was Vans and Trucks. They started to get, the Vans was much larger on the Vans and Trucks logo, and then Trucks got to be equal size on the front of the cover and said Vans and Trucks on the same bar, and then it said Trucks and Vans. And then the Vans are gone, and there were boats and goofy stuff, and so it just diminished. But that doesn't mean Vanners weren't still there. It was just that what had happened was the 2% movement killed the National Street Van Association, and when they split town, that took a lot of bigger sponsorships with it because it wasn't like this family-friendly thing. It was pretty raunchy. And, not everybody wanted it to be that way, but that's where it went. It took the money with it. Magazines disappeared. But then you had grassroots stuff. You had National Van Poon, which Camel was a big part of. And I have some of those, and they're great. They've been given to me by older vanners, and they're very fun. Guys like Larry Gibson wrote in them, and Blaine Dixon, and George Cattell. You had in the club, there were club newsletters, like the Midwest Vans Club newsletters. I have some of them. They're pretty funny. And so, back in the day, if you wanted to find another van event, you had to go to a van event and get the flyers for it. And then, to me, those books became the media outlet, and you had to get them, and you had to go to events to get them. And so that's kind of like the 80s, essentially, some grassroots stuff and club stuff and just being in the loop. That's what kept it going. And the publications were photocopies. And I love photocopy stuff. One of my favorite artists is Art Chantry, and he's pre-computer and, copy and paste kind of stuff and paste ups. And so, like, these books, these publications were so amateur and, like, had, like, werewolves put in them, and they were just really funny. And they were good, because to me, photocopy amateur work is so much more interesting than Microsoft Office amateur work. That's really bad, So then in the 90s comes in Vanning Now, and Vanning Now was all black and white, and that the only thing that they suffered from was just lack of technology. There was no digital printing to do a full color book. They did a great job. It was all black and white. It was good writing. They put it out on a consistent basis, but that's another hang up with Vanners. When money's coming in, people are like, well, where's the money going? And you become an evil character. They're just so against money, and it's so stupid because it's just so self-destructive to the whole culture. But that's how it is, and it remains that way. It's very, very destructive towards people doing things like that to advance, but whatever. That is what it is. That's the nature of the game. So Vanning Now ran for a long time. They did a great job, and then that kind of petered out for a few different reasons that I've heard, and we don't have to go into them because that's not my story.
Sure.
So then comes Vannon Magazine, run by Leadfoot. And Leadfoot he worked hard. He tried to do it. It was done on like an inkjet printer.
Yeah.
And they didn't look great, and they were collated by people at events. So the same people that were going to buy it put it together. That's really grassroots. Yeah. So things were real screwy and weird about it. And I think he did like 6 or 7 issues, and that was tough, And there were things about it that I did like.
Yeah.
And that was all there was. And he did a lot of writing, but the layout was horrendous. And Eric eventually folded up, and Eric was being helped by Wookie and other people, and so Wookie called me and said, let's talk about doing a magazine, because we're not going to be able to help Eric. He's just not interested, so let's talk about doing something. So we did. That was what brought it along, and what made it different, which was your question. I've digressed here, gone way further back than what was different. But what is different about Custom Vanner Magazine from the things that came before is that it was a full color publication, and it was DIY, but it wasn't extremely DIY. And the big difference was that, compared to Vanna magazine, was that I had an education in printing and graphic communications through vocational school. But, I was running, we were being trained on offset presses, letter presses, both like windmills and arbor style presses, for letterpress, and we were doing offset 1 and 2 color stuff, running envelopes and basic things like that. But we were also being trained on a digital press, which is a copy machine with a feed. It has a rip that you can send files to it. And so I could print things digitally and stitch them there at the school and trim them up and do whatever I wanted. I had a whole printing company at my fingertips when I was in school. And I was very inspired by my instructor, Delbert Hillegas. He was a fantastic guy, and he wanted me to do stuff. And so when I was graduated and I wanted to do this book, he was there for me. And he made it happen. And so what we had was, it wasn't my goal to document vanning. Mm-hmm. I wanted to show some cool trucks that were a part of vanning, but I didn't want to cover the people so much. I love the people, but you go to the event and you meet the people. Yeah. I do like that aspect of it, and we have done it. But I wanted to dip into history. I wanted to feature some vans that I thought were nice vans. Things that you might see in van, and there's some really garish trucks out there that I just don't want to display for anybody. And that is a discussion into design and doing things just because you've never seen it done. That's a whole nother conversation, but which we can get which we can get into later. It was just different because I feel like I had an idea on how to do a DIY book and get it out there for a few bucks or whatever, $5, something that people could buy. And I wanted to cover DIY stuff. Yeah. When I got into vanning and I would get on vannin.com and I'd go to the how-to section and I would read every how-to I could. That pumped me up. Guys like Super Beast and Catfish and just these, all these, individuals were just doing crazy stuff. They were doing chops, and Super Beast took his late model forward and combined his sliding door with his front door and removed the pillar and had this giant opening door on his dually late model Econoline with a clamshell back door. And then that was a sharp truck. And that kind of stuff I was like, wow, that's really cool, and seeing Goldwing doors and seeing people doing it at home, and I was like, I can customize my own van. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to talk about DIY stuff. I wanted to get people pumped on building vans.
That's cool. I mean, that's what makes it fun. I think the first issue of your magazine that I bought because I knew there was an article about doing a Goldwing door, and I wanted to see how that actually worked. It's cool, and like what you were saying earlier about learning metallurgy to become a better sheet metal fabricator, it's really interesting that this follows that directly in parallel. Like, you learned printing to make a magazine better. And it shows just in the way the thing's put together. It's a nice magazine.
Thanks. There's definitely, if you look at all 11, there's a very obvious progression, and then issue 11 jumps, I think, 10 steps ahead of anything that I was doing, but that's because Scott McGrath laid the whole thing out, and that's what Scott does every day. And I would consider myself, a graphic artist, but Scott he's just better than I at typography and just composition of a page. And I respect his opinion. I don't necessarily always go with what Scott tells me, but having him do the book was amazing because I love what he does. I like what he does with headlines, and sometimes he'll do something that's just so simple. And I'm like, man, you're the guy, you're the man with the eye. But I wanted it to, I designed some gig posters and things like that, and I designed my own T-shirts for years. I worked at a shirt shop, to make my own shirts, and I did it at home before that. So I'm not afraid to do stuff. I designed my own logo. It was the Vans and Trucks logo with an angled chop roof and tubbed back wheels, because I love Vans and Trucks. So that was homage to that book. So, I did it all by myself. Wookiee shot photos and virtual shot photos, but I laid out all the pages up until issue 8, and that's where Scott started helping. And then 8, 9, and 10.
Told you there'd be something.
Working on the railroad
I
outside.
guess.
Hopefully we can lead off from that. I don't know. But anyway.
Yeah, we can take a pause if you want to circle back to...
Yeah, what is it? Is that out in my lot? Rolling again? You ready to go again?
Yeah, we're rolling again.
Right.
So I think before we took a break, we were talking about the magazine. Fuck if I remember where we left off with that.
Yeah, I don't know. What can I tell you? What would be helpful?
I think I was going to ask, what do you think's next for the magazine? Is there any other sort of big step you want to take, or another bit, something in particular you want to cover in the future?
Going out of business sale. No, not really. I don't. All I ever wanted to do was provide people with DIY information, and I didn't do it in every issue. And I think what I found was that maybe people don't want to do it themselves. If anything, all I've done is shown that I can do it, and you can hire me to do it, and that's really boring to me, and it's a bummer. You know, even Scott, I was talking about some how-tos I wanted to do, and he said, "More boobs, less bore." And that bummed me out, because this last issue was the first time we did any kind of nudity at all, and I was just like, really, man? Like, that's what you want? Like, I don't know. Maybe he was joking with me. I'm not sure. And that's just where I'm at. Like, I don't care. Like, if I want to see tits, it's on the internet. Like, it's a Google away. Yeah. I mean, sure, it's cool. Like, you look through Car Mag, and there's a chick with a car, but that's no part of reality. Like, there's not...
It's a big downer for me, like the whole like inherent sexism to car culture. Like, you can't get away from it in magazines. Like, where in the hell can you? Like,
yeah, Zombie that does traditional riding culture, or maybe I'm saying that wrong.
Yeah.
Sorry for the offense, but he said that every time that they put a woman on the cover, it sells better. But I'm not on the newsstand. I'm not taking ads.
Yeah.
I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. So, you know, I made an effort to produce a magazine that anybody could read anywhere. And so, but that just sounds like a recipe for something really bland. So, you know, we were 10 issues in, so issue 11, we did some nudity, and there were some people that approached us with, you know, photo shoots. Like, I don't go out like, hey, lady, you want to get naked on this van? And, like, I think nudity is extremely difficult to pull off. I would rather just see maybe suggestive photography and clothing. Like, that's what's underneath is maybe more interesting than just like, oh, here's a set of boobs. You know, there they are. Like, so I don't know. What's next is that we're talking about doing a best of the first 10 issues and just going through and maybe talking about what it took to make some of them. Not that, I don't know, maybe nobody gives a shit. And why should they? Who cares? It's just a van magazine. What does it really do for the world? Nothing. Yeah. You know, it's not, there's no mission statement. It doesn't provide any value to anyone other than seeing more of what they enjoy, which is a van. And we talk about events, and that's it. We provide maybe a little bit of support for events and clubs we like, and that's it. So we talk about doing a best of because we took the back catalog down.
Yeah.
They were available for years, and I did them through a print to order kind of place, and that was fine. They drop ship them. They always did a fantastic job, and only a few times did things get lost, and they helped me replace them. But if people order a shirt in magazines, I've got to ship the shirt and then drop ship the mags, and I pay for shipping twice, and it's hard to really calculate that, and I hate to mark them up because I can't justify somebody paying me like $15 for issue 3 because it's not that great. It is interesting. There's some interviews with, that was the art issue. I interviewed this guy that used to work at a van shop where they'd paint like 6 vans a day. Yeah. And that was cool. It was interesting stuff, but that issue sold for $5. But this place charges me 20 cents a page, you know, and so then you gotta add it all up, and then you're like, wow, this time that I've spent in my life making this, I'm only ever gonna sell this many, and I get like a nickel for it, you know. And it's not, I never did it to get paid, you know. It was just something to do. That's why I don't take ads, and I don't really try to push it in people's faces and even on like our social media, which is just Instagram. Facebook is a crock of shit for a business. Nobody sees that.
Yeah.
They don't want anybody to see it unless I give them $5, and then then Kristen just sees it 15 times. So, to hell with that. But anyway, Instagram. I mean, we have 13,000 followers, and I still sell the same amount of magazines ever, and it doesn't. It equates to like 4 or 5% of the readership buys books, and I don't care. We get new people all the time, and I'm happy to have them, and I'm glad they enjoy the book, and we want to. Every time that I make a mag, I want it to be nicer, and I want people to get something cool, and that's it. That's the end result. So the future plan is to, if we can, that's why we switched the format. The format now is no longer a saddle stitch book; it's perfect bound, and we've jumped up to 60-something pages, and that was to give people a bigger book. If we could only do one a year, I wanted it to be nice. And because I failed in my fiduciary responsibilities as heading up subscriptions, I wanted to give people extra stuff. So we threw in a flexi disc that Vandits from their van club from Calgary, Alberta, they covered Fu Manchu's Boogie Van and pressed it on a flexi disc.
That's cool.
And gave it to everybody.
Huh.
And so that was really nice. So they threw in that extra for everyone. They wanted it for the subscribers, but they made enough that pretty much everybody that ordered got one. And we threw in a poster that was a shot I took from a lake in Ohio, and it was a lineup of all these mid-Dodges. And we threw in 2 new trading cards. We do a set of trading cards, and again, they're just fun stuff. And I just like to immortalize my friends' vans. That's all it is. We just put them in print. So just hopefully some more mags, and it's not my job. I mean, I have to treat it like that to get orders out, and with working and trying to work on some people's vans and do the books and the web stuff and all the printing, it's a lot to do, but I manage, and people are usually really, really understanding, and they're super chill about it.
Yeah, and they're there because they like you and what you put out.
Yeah. And they've been, totally understanding. No, not maybe a few people wrote me and were like, "You ripped me off," and in those cases, I sent them, T-shirts and sweatshirts. I mean, I sent, I try to send people something the equivalent of what they spent, because it's not my goal to take people's money. I don't mean to do that, if something goes wrong. So usually I try to tell people, or I ask them, I say, what would be a resolution to this problem?
Yeah.
And I think usually I can do something, because I certainly don't need somebody's $30. I work.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to keep up with it and do something nice. But I am trying to be an approachable individual. It's not ever been my goal to become a figurehead and to become a personality. That just came with doing the stuff. So, I don't, people can come to the van event and hang out with us. That's what we urge,
Yeah.
I don't want to be, I'm just the dude, I don't want people to think that we're like, I'm not like over here at Custom Banner headquarters.
Yeah.
That's not the deal. Over here at our trash hole, you can come hang out with us, and we want to hang out with you. That's our deal. So we try to be a little more down to earth than, I don't know what most people's aspirations are today in, small business, because there's so many small businesses and everybody's trying to hustle, and it's not what I'm after. I'm trying to become a metal shaper and work on vehicles and expand my mind. I just don't want to give up the book, and I like writing. So better pictures, better stories, more vans. I think that's what's on the horizon. I don't know.
Awesome. Did you want to talk about the shop?
Sure, that's fine.
So yeah, where did Matchstick Customs, your shop out here, come from, and what are you hoping to do with that too?
It just started as a joke. I made some T-shirts. It was just funny. I made the shirts that said welding, painting, and they said fiberglass. I wanted it to say fiberglassing. Yeah. I just wanted it to all say ing, but then I didn't like people. I'm from Kentucky, so I think I'm a stupid hillbilly, and probably try to tell me it's not a word. So I left that out. But it's the shirt I've always sold was just a joke. It's my buddy Punch's van. It's his Econoline, and it has a flat tire. It's a picture we took before he bought it at somebody else's house. it's the typeface is a Big Daddy typeface, and so it's just kind of a nod. It was just a funny shirt, and so that was all it was before. Because I worked out of my buddy Spence's garage, and he was gracious enough to let me make a mess in his garage for a long time. We laid up fiberglass doors in there, and I gold winged some of my earlier doors there. I did his was the first door I did that wasn't my own, and we did a lot of stuff over there, and it was just I don't know what we were doing. I made some molds, and we did some, who knows. I don't even remember what all we did over there. It was a crazy time, and it was gnarly. I put an air compressor in his shop and brought over a big bench and tools, and then we put a fridge in there, and then all of a sudden we had a place to hang out and work, and there was always a van in there. My van was even in there before it was mine. It was somebody else's, and that was our deal. Was you can't have your van in the shop if it's not being worked on, and nobody ever abided by that rule. So we had that one towed away before it was mine. But it just it's just me, and really this place here is my first shop that's mine, and it's fantastic because I can do things the way I want and when I want. So if I want to do some glass, or if I want to do some sign painting or striping or do some welding or whatever, that's totally up to me. And I've got my screen printing shop in the back, so I can jump between things and just do creative things. But like I said, I'm still, I don't know, I feel like I'm schooling right now. I'm still giving myself room between working at Gene's and doing small stuff here, that I'm trying to not take on giant projects or anything. I just want to work on developing my skill set and getting the tools I like. So right now, and it's unclear whether we'll stay here in California or not. I'm here to work for Gene, and I love that. But business-wise, it's a tough state to be a business in. It's higher taxes. Kentucky, it's a lot cheaper. So, I could pack it all up and go back to the Midwest, but I don't know if the work's there.
Yeah.
I don't know if the rates certainly aren't the same. So who knows? I'm just trying to keep up with the magazine and everything. But it's nice having a shop to do work for people.
Yeah.
We've picked up some small jobs installing hood scoops and putting in bubble windows and doing some stripe work, and just it runs the gamut, and it's nice. But I don't have any desire to do full builds. I don't like full builds. I've seen the people I've worked for get totally ringed out on them, and just totally get taken advantage of. I mean, that's what a shop's about, is doing things and putting your name on the whole thing, but that's not what I'm set up for here. I'm set up for short jobs.
Yeah.
So that's what I take on. I'm not out there trying to fish in a full build, because I don't know how long we'll be at this location, and that's just not what I want to do. I don't want to get tied down like that. But if somebody wants a rocker installed, or they want to get some windows removed from the side of their van, or they need something that I can knock out and get it out of my way, I'm happy to do that. That's fantastic. So I don't know. Right now, I'm just trying to not get in over my head with things and take on things that I don't have the facility for. Even though I did those things at other shops, sometimes somebody says, "Oh, I want to do this or that," and you'd be like, "Yeah, I've done that in the past, no problem." And then you're like, "Wait a minute, we had a table there, and we had a framed machine, or we had at least had a dozer, or we had a booth or whatever. I'm in a Quonset hut that I can jam 2 vans into, so I don't want to get carried away." But it was just a joke.
Yeah.
It was just fun stuff.
So I did think of something else I want to ask. And Bob, I'm going to need your help asking, because it's been a long day and I'm not used to this desert heat. But I imagine you have an interesting perspective on it. When you talk to old hot rodders and customizers, a lot of them see vanning as the death of hot rodding and customs. This is where I was asking for your help. Having the experience that you've had with vans and working with Winfield, what's your take on that? How do vans contribute to custom car history in general?
Well, I mean, certainly from the car world, the perspective is that vans killed it, but I think that's a scapegoat, because Detroit killed it. They brought on smog. Well, they didn't bring it on. The government brought on smog regulations, and so cars got choked down.
Muscle cars, the birth of the muscle car era didn't help either.
Yeah.
As far as customs were concerned, even hot rodding. Because why build a hot rod? We can go right to the dealership and buy one.
Yeah. You've got the lower top and the wider wheel flares and just all kinds of things that, you maybe wanted before that you paid a guy like Gene or Bill Cushenberry to do, and hey, here, you can go buy this stuff. And that suits so many other people. They don't want to pay to have a custom built. They just want to go buy the thing and participate, and especially at that time.
Yeah.
But what the deal was that it was politically a rough time. Gas was high. And as my friend Joe puts it, he's an older vanner, he said people were sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they just wanted to go have fun. And so you buy a van for $3,500 and put an interior in it and get some guy to stripe it, and it doesn't even have to be crazy. You can just outline the panels on it, and you're out. You're in the scene. You're doing it. I mean, if you did a custom van of any nature, and it was pretty much a finished truck inside and out, that you could get into a magazine. There were so many magazines. It was so huge, so quick, that it just exploded. But it wasn't. I don't feel like it had any effect on the hot rod world. I mean, I wasn't there. How the hell would I know? But I don't think. I think that's a total scapegoat. I think that it was a totally different crowd.
Yeah.
It's all about camping and stuff. But it's funny to think about that. Like, vanning is about going to a campground and hanging out. But the guys I used to live with in Western Kentucky and I worked for, their favorite thing, they looked forward to going to the hot rod reunion that Holly hosts in Bowling Green at Beach Bend Park. That was like their highlight. Can't wait to go because they loved the camping part and hanging out. And I was like, you guys don't have any idea what we do because you just want to be a vanner. If that's what you enjoy about this trip, you could go to a van event and do this. But I'm not trying to convince those people to do that. I don't. You can't get people to do stuff like that. But Beach Bend Park was the site of the biggest van nationals ever. There were 10,000 vans there in 1976.
Huh.
There's a BFG video on YouTube called Freewheelin'. They did a video. BF Goodrich paid for it and showed all these trucks rolling in. And it was not the catalyst. It was purely the result.
Yeah.
And anybody that says otherwise, I think, has an incorrect perspective, and they don't know. And most people don't. They have no clue about vanning whatsoever. They think it died. Nothing just disappears.
Yeah.
That'd be like if I hadn't seen a model train in 30 years and I was like, oh, I didn't know people still did model trains. That's crazy. I thought they were all gone. How stupid would I be? It's like somebody tried to tell me that they stopped making vinyl records. And I was like, what do you mean? Every band I've ever been in, we pressed a record. Well, in the 90s, they stopped. I'm like, how many 90s records do you want me to play for you right now? Because I'll get them out.
I think they're pressing more now than they ever did. I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, and there's even, like, somebody wrote me the other day and mentioned to me that they had found a place that still made 8-track tapes. And I was like, man, I thought for sure production of that was out. But there's always got to be that one shop hanging on. And for records, that's United Record Pressing in Tennessee. United's like the place to go with unless you want to go press with Pirate Press in the Czech and watch them dump their chemicals into the drain. So United's the way to go. It's just I don't know. I just think it's. I mean, that's a huge tangent there, but it's silly for people to blame something they don't understand and don't like on the demise of something they love so much.
Yeah.
But I think they're totally unrelated. And I mean, Gene is still there. Gene knows about vans. He painted vans for studios and stuff like that. And if it was killing Gene so much, he would have started a van shop.
Yeah.
He could have made big money at it. He'd have been a master at it because it was just like making fiberglass parts. You guys came to the shop and saw how many molds he has out there. He never even had to touch it. But Gene got into, Winfield Special Projects at that time and did muscle car stuff and like that B&M Camaro that we looked at that was pink and purple.
Yeah.
And, he survived, and it wasn't anything to do with that, or he would, like I said, he would have jumped on board with it, I'm sure. Just like all those commercial entities did then,
Barris did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw an ad in an old vanning magazine from the 70s. It was like, George Barris's custom van shop. And he was selling all these parts and stuff.
They did the movie The Van.
Yeah.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they built the vans, and JoJo's in it, and JoJo's in, I think, Corvette Summer also, and like they did, and George George did the van. Wait. Yeah, George did the vans from the van, but then George did Supervan, and he's in Supervan, and he built Supervan, you know, and so, like, yeah, he jumped in on it, like, you know, so it wasn't, but yeah, I don't think that one led to the other. Like, those guys are, the people that say that are I think just bitter that there's, you know, any kind of like van attention, and it's like, hey, we're already the redheaded stepchild of the automotive world. You don't need to make us feel any lower. And then it's usually those guys that are like, well, I did have one of those vans at some point. You know, it's like, you know, I don't get it. I don't understand. I've seen people post, when will the van trend be over? It's like, just close your eyes and look the other way. Don't worry about it. Like, when's your trend going to be over? When are we going to rip your pompadour off your head? You know, when are you going to stop pretending to be something that never existed? Like, you know, go join the Sha Na Nas if it bothers you that much. Like, you know, you have nothing going on in your world if all you can do is analyze somebody else because they're enjoying something. So, you know, do your own thing. You know, I don't get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, vans killed hot rods completely.
In summary,
yeah, it was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah, it was like you know, the nail in the coffin, for sure. And it was intentional. We did it.
That's what all the meetings are for.
Yeah, that's what the council of councils are about. Yeah, we get together and we're like, things people like, how do we kill it? And that's what they did. That's what our forefathers in vanning did. They led the strike force on hot rodding, and they were like, okay, NSRA, huge event every year. We are going to go and ruin it. And so that's it. You know, Disney Day, Van Day at Disney, the whole parking lot at Disney full of vans. That was a strategic maneuver because it was keeping hot rods out of the parking lot that day. And so, you know, that was pretty key in the movement there and killing hot rodding, because, you know, people that own vans would never also possibly have a hot rod or a motorcycle. And we were trying to kill motorcycles too.
Yeah.
Well, the big blind spots, it's pretty easy.
We did best with roller skating. Roller skating's out. You know, we brought in roller blades. Vanning benefited from that huge amount. You know.
I think that's it. You have any other
I don't
questions?
know where we go from there.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I don't know. But, I mean, there's.
We got the gotcha question in there. We finally sealed that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's that. What else do we say? I mean, do you want to talk about? Do we want to get into the brains versus brawn? That's a long one.
Yeah, I was gonna say that conversation could probably go for another hour.
That's a tough one.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time and for giving us the tour of both shops, man. We had a great time out here today.
Oh,
and thanks, Bob, for hopping in on the interview.
Yeah, no problem. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, we had a good time. That's cool. Yeah.
Right on. Well, all right, we made it to the end. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Matchstick and Bob, for the interview. I had a great time talking, and I'm sure we'll pick this up again soon because there's still so much more to talk about. I had such a great time. Matchstick was such an interesting person to talk to because the energy that he takes on new projects with is really inspiring. I mean, I think we could all learn a lot from that. You know, if you don't know the way to do something, put in the time, do the research, ask the questions, and figure it out. Maybe all of our projects will look a little bit better, and we'd all have a lot less barrels of fish oil sitting around. Thanks for listening.